Just 20 days until the election, Joe Biden still has a substantial lead over Donald Trump in the polls, over 10 points in the 538 national polling average. The president responded to those numbers with a flurry of friendly rallies and right-wing interviews, all of which could actually hurt his re-election hopes. Because Trump is now so deeply embedded in right-wing subculture, he appears to have lost his ability to speak to people outside that bubble. And so he looks at polling numbers and he sees that he's like losing a certain voter group, say, for instance, suburban women, who he won in 2016, who are now breaking for Biden. Here's how Trump tries to get them back.
I ask you to do me a favor. Suburban women, will you please like me? Remember? Please. Please. I saved your damn neighborhood, okay?
Jane Coaston has some insight into this messaging. She's a senior politics reporter for Vox. She's done a ton of reporting on Trump's right-wing mindset. And Republican strategist Sarah Longwell joins us as well. Sarah conducted a focus group last night and describes it this way. I did a focus group with women who voted for Trump in 2016. Not a single one was planning to vote for him again. Sarah, let me start with you on this. I mean, it really is striking to me, for all the insanity of 2016, that there was a kind of definable message, and the message had some appeal to a possible median voter who was not like a hardcore Fox News 8-hour-a-day watcher. What are you hearing from people that are in the kind of normie category who voted for Trump before and are kind of fed up with him now?
Yeah, well, look, people are exhausted and they're hurting. There is a pandemic. There is an economic crisis. People have been furloughed. They're not going to their jobs. Their kids can't go to daycare. I mean, they're looking for solutions. The personal consequences of the moment mean that people are genuinely looking for leadership. They're genuinely looking for a plan. And so when the president has a debate with Joe Biden and goes on and yells and interrupts, when he contracts coronavirus himself, which he has been downplaying, what he's not doing is talking to these people about the things that matter to them, about the things that are important to their lives and are going to improve them. And so what I've been seeing is Trump alienate these voters in real time. I've been doing the focus groups since 2018. I've probably done 50 of them. And since this summer, you've just seen him fall off a cliff with a lot of these women because, you know, before they said, well, the economy's good, you know, he's doing okay. They didn't like the divisiveness, but now they've had it. I had a group last night, non-college women, you know, these suburban moms, and I couldn't find a single one of them who was willing to say they were going to vote for him again in 2020, and they all voted for him in 2016. That
point, Sarah, about the not talking about anything in their lives is what's so striking to me about the president's rhetoric, Jane, because he's so wrapped up in a series of like Byzantine right-wing conspiracy theories and about what the Justice Department did and this FBI agent texted this person. None of it has anything to do with what people's lives are, and you're someone I think I got this thesis partly from, which is that he's trapped by his own immersion in picayune details of the right-wing, you know, extended universe.
Right. It's interesting because actually just before we had this conversation, Trump was speaking and told the audience, did you hear the news? Bruce Orr has left the Department of Justice. Then if you're in the Trump rally audience, what are you thinking? Who the hell is Bruce Orr? Because you have things to do. And I think it's such a fascinating departure because in 2016, part of the narrative that was constructed around 2016 as why this happened is that elites weren't listening to what real Americans, normal Americans, middle America was really concerned about and talking about. And I think in many respects that was somewhat true. I think that the concerns of people in Rust Belt cities, the concerns of people in working class neighborhoods, obviously a certain kind of working class neighborhood, weren't getting heard. But in 2020, it's like, forget all that. We care about the beautiful voters and the Russiagate hoax that you need an advanced degree to explain to anyone, and a conversation that is so focused on a very specific audience, which I think is me, you, and people who read townhall.com. And it just is, it's so internecine. It's so focused on this messaging that he is getting, and then he shares on Twitter, and then people reply to him on Twitter, and it's a back and forth. But at no point is there an entrance from anyone else.
You know, and part of what makes this, to me, sort of sort of fascinating to observe as someone who thinks a lot about politics and covers politics, Sarah, is there were so many ways in which, Trump sort of defied political gravity in 2016. And when he said the thing he said about John McCain, everyone said, well, that's not going to work. And when he bragged about the size of his genitalia, everyone was like, oh, well, that's going to be bad for him. And it never seemed to catch up with him, right? And then he won this improbable victory. And, one of the things I started learning when I started coming to politics at 22, 23 is like you try to not be a jerk. You try to be kind of likable. You try to appeal to people that don't already agree with you. These are like basic tenets which he has completely overthrown. And it seems like it's like the revenge of those basic ideas now this time around.
Yeah, well, I mean, the difference is he's not running against Hillary Clinton. I mean,
Right.
When I do these focus groups, here's what they say to me. I say, why'd you vote for Trump in 2016? They say, oh, I didn't vote for Trump.
Right.
I voted against Hillary Clinton. And he just doesn't have that foil
Right.
now. And so, the thing is, Joe Biden is actually pretty popular. People like him. His favorables are pretty high. And so, look, these are Republican voters. And so they're not in love with Joe Biden, but he's acceptable enough.
Right.
He'll do, especially when he seems like a nice, normal person, and Donald Trump really sounds like a raving lunatic to them. I mean, when I ask them how they think things are going in the country, they usually curse. They're very unhappy with how things are going.
This is one of your voters saying after the debate saying, are we serious right now? You're on live TV. You've got every single social injustice thing happening right now. Just come out and condemn it. This is about white supremacists. Is it for all the rednecks that you're not telling the KKK to knock it off? I had a WTF moment while that was happening. This is one of the people responding. And Jane, I thought this moment was amazing. Chuck Grassley saying to Donald Trump on Twitter, I suggest you use Pocket Card at podium with 5 short sentences on what you've accomplished. 5 things that differentiate you from Biden. 5 things you will accomplish in the next 4 years. Focusing on these simple highlights will help your message and only take 5 minutes, then say whatever you want.
Again, this is being said to the President of the United States, but I want to point out a very specific moment from the debate. There was a moment in which Trump appeared to go after Biden for something having to do with his alma mater. That was a reference to a specific moment in which Biden said he got his start at Delaware State University,
Right.
which is a historically black college. And people were railing against him like, oh, he forgot where he went to school. That's not exactly what happened. It had to do with his first campaign. But also, who cares?
Right.
Like, that was such one of those tiny little moments that if you cover or follow right-leaning conservative media, you heard about because it was referenced briefly by someone. But it also was so disconnected from, like, hello, there's a pandemic going on. We're in the midst of stimulus debates that you just pulled out of for no apparent reason because you've decided you're Paul Ryan now. Like, what's happening? What's going on? I think that's what a lot of people are starting to ask, even people who voted for him.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing about this, and Sarah, you've talked about this, like the background context here is that the country is objectively in terrible shape. And there's 800 people who died today. So there's 37,000 people in the hospital. I talked to a guy the other day who's just in a casual conversation told me his father passed away on Saturday. And like that happens a lot in America right now. If you don't have something to say about that, you don't have something to say to American voters. Jane Coaston and Sarah Longwell, thank you both for talking to me tonight.